up, guys? IAQ Josh here on site. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about infrared imaging, also known as thermography. Having just gotten out of my level 2 thermography class this past week, which I actually took with Bill Schwan and Matt Schwegler. Just wanted to take a moment to give a big shout out to those two gentlemen. Absolutely amazing class, from freshening up on the level 1 material to absorbing all of the new material for the level 2 training. It was an absolutely amazing class. What we're doing today is kind of paying it forward, if you will. We're taking some of the knowledge that I currently have, as well as some of the recently acquired knowledge, and I wanted to share that with everyone today. So, over here to my left, which is going to look like your right, I would like to think on camera, we have a traditional pool pump. This one happens to be outside of my house, so didn't travel far from home to get here. Went ahead and put some electrical tape on part of the metal that's around the motor, and you guys will see why here in just a few minutes. But normal pool pump, nothing too extravagant. Just wanted to kind of take you guys on a little bit of a screen share through my iPad, looking through the eyes of an E85 thermal imaging camera, and just wanted to kind of share some information with you guys. So let's jump to it. All right, so taking a look at our pool pump here, you're gonna see absolute ton of colors, from your hotter yellows all the way down to your cooler blacks. For those of you who already are familiar with thermal imaging, you know that hotter surfaces are going to produce your reds, your orange, your yellow colors, whereas colder surfaces are going to produce your purples, your blues, your blacks. In this case, what we're going to be focused in on is the motor side. So let's move on in. We're going to do an automatic adjustment here. Perfect. So now that we have everything in focus, let's take a look at what we got going on. We have this pattern that you see here. This is going to be the oxidation that is on the metal housing around this motor, whereas this nice smooth area is going to be where I applied a piece of electrical tape before we fired this video up. What you're going to notice is when we hold the crosshair here over the piece of electrical tape, we maintain pretty steady temperatures. I think we saw one fluctuation to 111, there we go, but overall it's about 110. Whereas the second that I move this crosshair off and onto this metal, we start to see some variations. We've got 108, 107, 104, and yes, I know that I'm moving the infrared camera around a little bit, but overall, the objective here is to demonstrate that when we use something like electrical tape, which has a known emissivity of 0.95, as compared to a piece of, or a portion of oxidized metal, which isn't going to have a fixed known emissivity, short of doing some calculations, we would have no way to actually have any idea what the emissivity is of this surface. It goes to show you how valuable something as simple as a piece of electrical tape could be when we're going around doing these thermal surveys of materials, whether we're looking at hot surfaces here or whether we're doing what I typically do on a daily basis, which is more so looking at these cooler temperatures, right? We're taking a look at a wall and we're trying to see where we have these darker palettes of colors, because that's going to be a good indication to us that there's something going on. Typically has to do with water when we start to see these patterns right along the base of a wall, and we found out from Mrs. Jones that the bathroom backing this wall just had a leak a day or two ago. So that said, this is a good demonstration just to give you guys an idea of the importance of using anything that has a known emissivity if you are looking for quantitative data. Most of what we do is going to be qualitative, meaning we can show comparisons of photos. So even if we were off, let's say, we would be off equally. So that can qualitatively show a potential issue, something that needs maintenance, etc., etc. Okay, so for this next step, we are going to be calculating our reflective temperature. That way we can go ahead and input that into FLIR tools. So let's come around. We've got this here is just going to be a standard piece of aluminum foil. In this case, I had electrical tape, so I just used 2 pieces of electrical tape to tape it to the wall. Let's go ahead and come into our settings here. We're going to transition over to measurement parameters. We're going to select emissivity. We are going to increase this to 1. That is 1.00. Want to go back into our measurement parameters, go to our object distance. We're going to set this to a nice even 0. What we're also going to do is we are going to, you can select hot spot, cold spot, whatever you want. We're going to essentially customize this here. We're going to tap on that. We're going to select that. We're going to go into our settings down here. We're going to unselect max. We're going to select average. What we're going to do is also make this a little bit bigger so that way we get a better average of what we're reading. And we want to come in, we're roughly about a foot away from the aluminum foil. We're going to improve upon our resolution there, not our resolution, my apologies. We've got a clearer image now, so we've automatically focused that. And as you can see, let's get in here. We've got a pretty steady reflective temperature of about 75.9. So we'll go at 76 on that reflective temperature. Alright, so for the next part of this video, we want to go ahead and capture a photo here, which we're then going to go ahead and edit in a program by the name of FLIR Tools, which will allow us to modify a number of factors on there, change everything from emissivity to distance of the object to the atmospheric temperature, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and grab a photo here. We filled our full crosshair. We got everything focused in. We're going to do a non-uniform correction, also known as a nuke. That was the calibration that you just saw. And we're going to go ahead and take a photo. Perfect. So now that we've got that photo, let's go ahead and jump into FLIR Tools. All right, so here we are within FLIR Tools. I am working on a iPad Pro, just for reference. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and open up the image that we just spent a little bit of time shooting in front of the pool pump to give you guys a little bit better visual. This is going to be the pump, or excuse me, not the pump, the actual motor that's attached to the pool pump. This area here, this has the electrical tape on it. You can pretty clearly see that. This is going to be our surrounding metal housing around this motor. You can see by the varying light grays and dark grays that this is definitely an oxidized surface, so it's very rough to the touch. Talking about what we were wanting to demonstrate, we've got pretty steadily in the top left, you'll see the spot temperature as I move this crosshair about. 110, 111 does not fluctuate much, whereas we move down to this oxidized surface and we've got numbers across the board. And the reason for this is going to be that this tape here, this electrical tape, has a known emissivity of 0.95, where if I was a betting man, I'd say this oxidized metal, maybe has somewhere on the lower end 0.3 emissivity all the way up to, possibly 0.5. There is a way to measure it. Not really worth it once we get down to the lower emissivities. Even if they are oxidized, your best bet is going to be taking a piece of electrical tape if you can and sticking it on the surface. Again, disclaimer, if it is a high current surface, extremely hot, use sound judgment. Don't just walk up to a 240 volt wire with who knows how many currents. Clearly, I'm ignorant to the electrical trade, and go and stick a piece of electrical tape on there because it's not going to be good. But anyway, let's compare. Let's take that crosshair. Let's take the second crosshair. We're going to move that down. You can see in the top left corner, we've got a difference of 7.2 degrees. That is, spot 1 is 110.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Spot 2 is 103.6. That figure just below that, spot 1 temp dash spot 2 temp, 7.2, that is going to be our delta T. And that delta T is the difference between spot 1 and spot 2. Take spot 1, subtract spot 2, that gives you 7.2. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come on in the lower left corner, click our little graph icon, and we want to go and we want to plug in these numbers. We know that our emissivity on the tape is 0.95, so we'll leave that as our constant. Relative humidity, we can go ahead and change that. We had an average relative humidity of, let's see, it looks like 45.93. Gonna hit that enter key. We're gonna go into our atmospheric temperature. We've got an average temperature of 67.12. Hit the enter key. Can we get back into our reflective temperature now? Not sure what's going on here, but FLIR is not wanting us to change our reflective temperature. So let's attempt to change it. Let's just hit the delete key, even though we can't see it, and actually go in and change it to, I think it was 77 degrees. Hit the enter key. Reflective temperature, we've got 76. So let's go ahead and use that figure right there. Double check, 0.95, 76. Our distance is 1.36 feet away. We confirm that with a laser measure. Relative humidity average 46%, atmospheric temperature 67. It's a little bit chilly here in South Florida. Transmission, IR window, we're not focused on those. We're gonna hit the done key, and what you'll actually notice is even though we adjusted those variables, again, these are the variables that we can adjust after the fact. As we'll talk about in just a few minutes here, there's a couple of factors we cannot. That's our focus, our range, and our distance. But anyway, just wanted to use this as a quick comparison tool just to show you guys the differences between surfaces that have known emissivities, whereas surfaces that do not, and how something as simple as a couple of degrees, we've got now, what, 107 compared to 110. Before, I think we had 103. So we had a 7.2 delta T. And if we're dealing qualitatively, that doesn't matter. That's really minuscule. Obviously, we're going to be able to see the differences between hot, like we see here, and all these little cold patches, as well as this very hot motor over here. But however, if we were working quantitatively, where the actual temperature matters, 110.9 compared to even 110.0, especially 107, 103. I mean, the further we get away and broadening this delta T between what would be the correct measurement and the incorrect measurement, you could just be in a world of disaster, especially if this is going to be anything that's potentially litigious, part of a court case, or again, if they're just, you might be working in the nuclear industry where these numbers quantitatively are probably some of the most important numbers out there. That said, for what we're doing when it comes to thermography in our industry, at least, specifically going around identifying areas that have moisture, maybe looking for moisture migration patterns, the emissivity is going to be important. We're not going to have, again, because we are working qualitatively, the absolute or the actual 100% correct number isn't as important. We're still going to see these color gradients. We're still going to see the differences between the yellows and the blues. That said, you got a couple other things you can use here. Over on the right side, we've got our actual range, and within that we've got our span. So we've got 110.6 up at the top there. Let's tap this thing again, and we can actually drag down on here, which is going to change our span as well as change our level, which is going to be our center point. And if we wanted to possibly add a little more clarity on what we're trying to look at, we can kind of bring it to where we bring down the temperature span like we're doing here. If we bring down the temperature span, we're going to start to see other things show up that maybe we couldn't see before. As long as what you're capturing is within the range of the camera on what you're seeing when you first take that picture, you'll be able to what's known as thermally tune this here. All right, cool. That was awesome. I don't know about you guys, but I had an absolute ton of fun doing that. You can see when I don't sit still, this is usually because there's just a lot of excitement or anxiety. I call it excitement built up. Nonetheless, hope that you guys learned a little bit, something more about infrared imaging. For any of you level 1s, this was a sneak peek at some of what we just learned this past week in level 2. And for those of you thermographers without experience, hopefully you get some value out of this and you can apply this to maybe some upcoming projects. Just a reminder, some key factors when we're out there in the field collecting these thermal images. There are three components that you cannot change after the fact in programs like FLIR Tools or even on the camera if you are still out in the field. You cannot change focus, cannot change range, and you cannot change distance. Easiest thing to keep in mind is forward, whereas the FO is for focus, the R is for range, the D is for distance. Just think of that when you're out in the field. Secondary factors that you can always change after the fact are going to be your emissivity, your reflective temperature, your distance to the object, your atmospheric temperature, relative humidity, things of that sort. What we always like to do, I've got my relative hygrometer here, or thermohygrometer, that has been running the whole time that we've shot this video. I like averages, so what we'll do is we'll come in here, we'll collect the data that's stored within here. This will give us our atmospheric temperature as well as our relative humidity, which we'll plug those components in when we're editing any photo. If we don't want to do it on site, again, benefit to that is we can do these after the fact. But your focus, your range, your distance, those need to be dialed in exact every single time. All right, that is a wrap. As always, if you found value in this video, please go ahead and give me that lovely big thumbs up. If you'd like to be and remain and find yourself up to par on any future videos that I have, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can set it up to where you get notifications. Other than that, I'll see y'all around.